I feel incredibly lucky because it's the best day. It is the day where we get to talk about the biggest stories of the week. And this week, between the moment that Tracy Chapman is having and Taylor Swift and the Super Bowl, I feel spoiled. So today on the podcast, the group chat is here. There's a lot to get into. Let's go. I'm Elamin Abdelmahmoud. This is Commotion. It is time. It's time to dig into the week's big arts and pop culture stories right now. This week, there is just no other story. There's no bigger story than the Super Bowl and all the other stories that come with the Super Bowl, right? Like there is Usher and the halftime show. There's how a certain pop star who might show up and how they might change the demographics of who watches or who advertisers actually target. And speaking of pop stars, everyone fell in love with Tracy Chapman this week. I have a lot of questions about that. I will get to that in a minute. But in the meantime, some of my favorite culture thinkers are here. Garvia Bailey's here, Auntie Donahue's here, Jackson Weaver's here, and Garvia Jackson. Welcome to the show.
Hello.
Hi. I'm delighted to have all of you. Listen, this Sunday, I am reliably told, okay, that the San Francisco 49ers are going to play the Kansas City Chiefs at the Super Bowl. But let's not lie, at least like a third of us are watching for this other reason.
It's me. Hi, I'm the problem. It's me. At tea time, everybody agrees. I'll stare directly at the sun, but never in the mirror. It must be exhausting, always rooting for the anti-hero.
How exhausting would it be, you guys, if someone was like, which team are you rooting for? And I said, I'm rooting for the anti-hero. Like, would you boo me? Because I think I would deserve your ire and anger if that was the answer that I
slipped
gave.
in like I'm reliably told just to like let people know. I don't know.
I'm not sure. That's what I hear is happening.
Yeah,
but the one thing I'm certain
Allegedly.
of is that there's a lot of energy around the Super Bowl and around Taylor Swift, who, of course, she's dating Travis Kelce, who plays for the Kansas City Chiefs. Jackson, listen, you're a lifelong football fan. You've been doing this a long time. How does the energy around this Super Bowl feel different than other years?
I mean, like the Super Bowl, NFL is the biggest sports league by revenue in the world. So it's always a big thing and it's always a big event. But I mean, I started playing football when I was about 5, so I never really had a time in my life where I didn't know how it works. So it's something that I've like come to the table to actually understand when people say like, oh, I don't get sports ball, haha, funny joke. But like taking a step back, football is actually insanely complicated. It's a very complicated sport where everyone is basically playing a different sport. If you have soccer, if you're like, I don't know soccer, but like if you have like a wing center or whatever, they're like kind of like kicking the ball, the same thing. But like a quarterback is, I don't know. But like a quarterback versus like an offensive lineman, they're doing different things. One's like doing sumo wrestling. The other one is doing like hand archery. So it's incredibly specialized. So many rules, very complicated. And even though football is a huge thing with like a huge demographic or a wide demographic, it's difficult to find a way in and a reason to like actually go through and like, okay, I'm going to figure out like how this stupid game actually works.
Sure.
But, you know, Taylor, for Swifties, which I know we have one in the conversation here.
I am right here, my dude. I mean, you can just name me. It's fine and normal to do so. Anyway, continue. Yes.
It is normal. It's very normal. But I mean, this gives a lot of people like a reason to actually get committed to actually learning. Like if you're like scrolling TikTok, you like have people explaining, you know, like what those yellow lines on the field are and like why is that guy waving his hand in the air when somebody kicks the ball to where like all these hyper specific things that are confusing that you don't really like want to even go through the effort of figuring out and learning. But now like there's a reason to dive in. But also, I mean, if you look at the NFL, almost any time it's in the news for the past 2 decades is something horrible.
Terrible.
There's something like there's CTE, obviously, anti-black bias, obviously. There's taking a knee. There's all of these things, intersections, and like about owners, you know, disenfranchising the actual players, the athletes. Every news event that's tied to the NFL is bad press, which you don't think should exist, but absolutely does. This is one of the first times in recent memory, I would say, where people are talking about the NFL, and it's not like, wow, it's so horrible what Washington's team name was. That's the worst thing I've ever heard.
Yeah.
And this is it's a boon for them in a way that, it's maybe starting to sour a little bit, but it's a way for this insanely bloated, huge sports event that's maybe a little bit insular, not only in the country that cares about it, but also the demographic within that country, for it maybe to reach a few other people that it hasn't before.
First of all, I'm always relieved to hear football people say that the barrier to entry in terms of understanding football is high, because that is correct. Like, it is not an accessible sport if you've not been following it for a long time. I think if you're like, let me just kind of let me get around understanding what football is. It's a really high barrier of entry. Having said that, a lot of new fans are transcending that barrier of entry because of this whole conversation around Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. And you are one of those people that we're talking about here. You're like, you know what? I'm sort of in on this thing. Why are you excited to watch this game, even though you're like, football, not for me?
Yeah, not for me. I mean, listen, the name, Kansas City's name in general is just like, can we please, Taylor, use your power? Can we stop?
Sure.
Can we Taylor, you have some clout. Let's do this. And of course, as Jackson was saying, there's a lot of problems with the NFL. I didn't grow up in a football house or a sports house at all. So it's interesting to watch discourse around the Super Bowl that isn't just about the halftime show and actually sees more of a look inside the nuance of football culture. Like, I started listening to Travis and Jason's The Heights. Is that what it's called? I keep wanting to say
Heights?
In the Heights.
Wow. Yeah. That's Lin-Manuel Miranda.
I'm like, I love their singing voices. They're so great and strong, and their melodies. Oh my goodness. Oh, I love it. But it's giving, I think, a bit of a glimpse into topics that we kind of glaze over, in terms of even the way Jason cried on the podcast when he was discussing his retirement and Travis just let him. There's human capacity in this sport, but
they're good ambassadors for the sport in a way.
Yes. But at the same time, I'm still I wish I didn't know as much as I did about the NFL right now.
About the NFL in general, yes.
Yeah, and also, I mean, Taylor Swift is giving her best Sweet Valley High impression at all of these games. Very prom queen goes with the football guy. I'm I don't know. I don't think we would have gotten along in high school, but that's okay. That's fine. All of us, we had to hang out in parking lots, some of us, it's okay.
I have to say, Garvia, when we think about the traditional relationship that's been portrayed over generations between women and football, our minds tend to go towards something like this.
When it comes to the big game, I love feeding my hungry guys. But now what? I normally just sit in the kitchen, waiting for them to ask for more delicious Totino's pizza rolls. But that can be so boring. Well, not anymore. Introducing Totino's new Super Bowl activity pack for women. It's full of fun little puzzles and games to keep my mind active and learning while I wait back here.
I desperately wish for people listening on the radio that you could see Garvia's face as that was playing. So that was an SNL spoof commercial from 2015. It plays up the stereotype, right? It plays up the stereotype of the Super Bowl housewife who's making snacks for her husband and his buddies. I gotta think that sort of parody wouldn't fly right now, especially, in this particular moment. What sort of shifts are we seeing in terms of the demographics of who is paying attention to this, to the NFL and the Super Bowl?
Look, I think that the NFL has a very strong female fan base.
Yeah.
Let's just get that out of the way.
Yes.
They have an extremely devoted female fan base.
It's nearly 50%.
47% or something.
Yeah.
So there's a lot going on. So when you hear something like that, it's there's all these women in their Bears outfits and stuff ready to actually watch the game and know football. So, but that being said, the NFL has had to make a concerted effort to sort of clean up what has been the stories around the NFL as of late, especially when it comes to women. Domestic violence is a part of kind of what pops into your head when you think of the NFL. So, I think times have changed. They have done their best to court women. They have something like almost 300 women in coaching and or high-level administrative positions in the NFL. they're doing the thing. They still did Janet Jackson wrong, and I cannot forgive that for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
But
Never forget, never forgive. 20 years
never
later, we'll
forget.
never forget
No,
that.
no.
Yeah.
no
Yeah.
justice, no peace.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Correct.
Janet is anyway. Women are watching football. You didn't need Taylor Swift to make women watch football, and I kind of disagree with Jackson that all of a sudden people are like thinking, "Oh, how does this thing work?" Women are watching this going, when are they going to show Tay Tay? Like, what is she wearing? Are those boots? What, like, you know, that's what's actually happening. No one is thinking, what is that tight end doing? No one is thinking that. They might be thinking about maybe Travis's tight end, like, what is Tay Tay doing? But, you know.
I don't even know. Listen, the fact we've said tight end more times in this podcast than I think I have in my entire life. I'm very I didn't even know that was a position. I just thought it was slang.
Allegedly a very important position. I couldn't tell you what that means.
Allegedly,
Maybe Jackson
yeah,
can tell us about this later. And we should also say that like beauty brands like L'Oreal or Elf will be running ads during the Super Bowl. Other companies like M&M's and Uber Eats have hired people like Scarlett Johansson and Jennifer Aniston for their ads. And what do you make of this shift? What do you make of like who is getting to speak in these ads?
I mean, you're like the female fan base of the NFL is super strong. I think it's strange and a little condescending that it's like women are going to be watching. Quick, put the makeup ads on. It's like women were always watching. We wanted to see famous people do weird things for 30 seconds because we knew they were getting so much money, and we're like, why? It's very strange that all the like Taylor Swift adjacents suddenly means like this boom of consumerist culture that was always there. I mean, hello, it's the Super Bowl ads. They're like a currency in and of itself. So, I mean, congratulations to Elf, because Mean Girls was also a pretty long Elf commercial. Am I right?
Jackson, one strange byproduct of all this attention that Taylor Swift is getting here and Travis Kelce is that has made this maybe the first Super Bowl to get a political dimension that has a conspiracy theory dimension to it. Can you just talk about some of the insane conspiracy theories that we keep hearing and why they're so popular?
I mean, it's definitely the biggest. You know, we had Deflategate. That was its own thing. But like in terms of
which one is that one?
Oh my gosh. We'll
Is
get
it
into
something
the whole...
with the ball being
do a little
deflated,
quickly, but yes, yeah.
And it was crunchy and they couldn't kick it properly.
Oh, so the ball was not the right amount of
They thought
inflation.
they underinflated the ball just to help a certain
Wow,
team
Super Bowl's so
win.
dramatic.
It was a conspiracy, but is it insular to the sport?
Yeah.
This is
never made it to me, buddy. Never made it to me. Let's talk about these.
This is a conspiracy for your garden variety conspiracists to engage in. You don't need to know how football works for this one to work. But I mean, the main thing that is propping up out of this, something that I was seeing is I was scrolling TikTok and there was, you know, CanCon, we love to see it, but there was this Canadian conspiracy connection where some BC local radio station had put in an ad or a headline a little bit earlier than they should have, and it like went out to, you know, like the TTC has, you know, those like little news headlines, and it said something like Kansas won like a minute before they actually did, and all the comments were like, those newsroom writers like know ahead of time Taylor Swift is now tied to the Kansas City Chiefs, so if the Kansas Chiefs win, then Taylor will have the cultural cachet to endorse Biden, and then they can like that's the whole thing. But I mean, like I'm sitting here, I'm kind of the guy like in other days later today, I'll be the guy like writing the headlines for a lot of our stuff. Yeah. If I knew who was going to win the Super Bowl, I would be saying it right now. I do not have a good poker face.
Sure.
But that conspiracy is something that is, I don't know how much it's actually believed by football fans. It is something that Vivek Ramaswamy was like one of the main guys who kind of like put that out into the ether, being like, oh, well, now that Taylor is tied to Kansas, I wonder who's going to win the Super Bowl. And
these are just people that don't love. You know, their hearts are hard. They can't see what it means to love and to be a tremendous star and fly in a jet to see your lover who is on the largest stage in the like. I mean, these people are hard-hearted. This is why these conspiracies happen.
They're hard-hearted. I think it's also a little bit of like
I love
Taylor
how
is
much you love
famously-
Garvia, but yes.
I love love.
Yes.
We love love, guys. This
Yes.
is exciting.
Taylor's like somebody who's famously wants to drive down the middle of the road. She doesn't really take too many stands. So in the warning of her getting political, if
Yeah.
she, got her fan base to, I mean, she has endorsed in the past, but if she was very, 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 politically motivated about getting a certain candidate elected,
Yeah.
that might actually work. So there's people who are, up in charge up top are like guarding against that. I don't know how much the actual football fans believe in it, but also
Yeah.
I think Taylor's in a weird space right now where she's been like America's sweetheart for so long. And there's this theory I have called,
no.
I call it the Dobby theory,
Okay.
where
Okay.
if you are a celebrity, if you're somebody in the public eye, you need to have the right amount of detachment, like be a Beyonce or a Keanu Reeves, like not on social media, give people just a big enough gap for the parasocial relationship to kind of work. But if you get superstardom, hugely big, and you're present everywhere, and people feel like they're being forced into liking you,
Yeah.
that's when you start to feel how I feel about Dobby, where they tried to make him cute and force me to like him. And that just makes me hate him so much more. And Taylor, she's unfortunate, she's in the
I hate him
Grammys. She had
too.
that moment where she was like presenting her album. People were like a little bit icked out by that. She's in the NFL more and more. She's stopped being this kind of person who's mythical, mystic. You don't really understand exactly what she wants and feels, but now she's too present, too available, and I think that's starting to give people enough of an ick that they're going to invent a conspiracy theory about her so they can hate her.
I'm sorry you feel that way. I just, the only thing I have to say about that is I'm sorry. I cannot. Here's what you've done to me is that, like, with the remaining time that we have, I either have two choices, which is to go further into this or keep it moving. And I'm going to choose the higher road, Jackson Weaver,
Okay.
and keep it
Let's
moving.
go.
But I want to come back to this because I think there's a lot more to talk about there. But we're going to leave it there for now. On Monday's podcast, we are going to talk about Usher's halftime show. If folks are listening, I'd love to talk about that show because I have a lot of questions about how Usher's going to do this. In the meantime, my name is Elamin Abdelmahmoud. This show is called Commotion. Garvia Bailey's here, Jackson Weaver is here, Auntie Donahue's here. We're talking about the big stories this week. On Monday's podcast, which just a few days ago, we talked about the highlights from this year's Grammys. And there was one moment from that show that people are still talking about, even more than who actually won.
I remember when we were driving in your car. Streets about to feel like I was gone. City lights lay out before. Mountain lights out around my shoulder.
Come on, Tracy Chapman,
Shivers.
Oh my
Luke
gosh.
Combs. All right, what a combination. Tracy Chapman, Luke Combs singing Fast Car. Listen, Tracy released that song way back in 1988. It has had this big comeback this past year because Luke Combs covered it. And since that performance, Tracy's original version of Fast Car has seen this massive surge in streaming numbers. We're talking like 600,000 plays per day. And now it's at number 1 in the iTunes chart. We've seen a lot of people, a lot of young people who are like, I don't know who this is, but I love this new artist that I just discovered. I kind of love that, honestly. Garvia, you're an OG Tracy fan. How does it feel to see
sure.
her in the spotlight again this many years later?
Well, yeah, my 22-year-old daughter's like, Mom, is that your friend? She's really good. I'm like, yeah, she kind of is my friend, whatever. She is, first, she was nominated herself for 6 Grammys,
Yes.
right? She herself was at the top of the Billboard chart with more, like 5 hit singles. She was on the cover of Rolling Stone.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like Tracy Chapman.
2 albums that
is
went
coming out
platinum.
of
Like, he's not
nowhere.
he's not an obscure artist. Yeah.
She's huge. Granted, she hasn't had the shine because she has decided herself not to pursue that kind of celebrity.
Yeah.
But seeing the way that the world and younger folks have embraced her, I'm relieved, to be honest. I'm relieved because it means that an impeccably written song, sung without adornment, can still touch people and move people in a way.
Yeah.
I am relieved. I didn't know where we were going. Like, this woman comes on there. There's no BBL in sight. We've got great lyrics coming out.
Yeah.
There's no like
Simple
she's
stage
just
setup, you know what I mean? Like
simple
not a lot going on.
stage setup, all of that, and still people were so moved and touched.
Yeah.
It made me feel really heartened for
Yeah.
humanity and the power. Like, sorry to be heavy about it, but the power of art showed itself in that moment.
Yeah.
And good art, not just entertainment. I'm talking about good art. So substance and message mattering in that moment was everything to me. And I felt just a little bit relieved and very hopeful about the way that art can still transcend. It doesn't have to be packaged in a way that is that frankly makes me a little not into art or entertainment, right?
Yeah.
So it was really nice to see that, and I just loved seeing her get her flowers again after and not really even asking for them, just showing up, doing what she does, and then the flowers just came to her. She didn't ask.
What I love about this, Anne, is that like there's been all these articles that are like, where has Tracy Chapman been? And then you read them, and honestly, like most of the articles are like, we don't know. Like she just kind of just mostly disappeared. And I'm like, well, first of all, I don't understand the purpose of why this article even exists in the first place. But there's something about withdrawing from public attention. Tracy has not really done a lot of public performances in a long time. And then returning to this moment, and then everyone was like, oh yeah, this is what a great song is. So when you saw this, what do you make of Tracy's return after such a long silence?
It's just the coolest thing in the entire world. I mean, how cool is it when somebody looks at like the fame that she did have when the back, the fame that she had, the talent she has, people talking about her, and then on her own terms, she's like, no, I'm okay. Like how, my God, like the power, the self-awareness. I think it's just, it kind of shows that the idea of celebrity is kind of BS because real art stands on its own. Like I'm not a Luke Bryan girl, so I was always like, who is this man
Luke
covering
Combs, but
the
it's
song?
fine. Don't worry about it.
Okay, see, this is what I'm saying.
You really don't. You're not into him at all. You don't even like. I don't even know his name.
Yeah.
I don't know
who
his
is
name.
he?
Yeah, different Luke. Don't worry about it.
I don't know
Sorry,
him.
I don't know who this man is.
That man covering her song, like it's such a beautiful, like, oh my goodness, like her voice, the poetry, and then there's like that whole album, by the way, is amazing. Like Revolution is timely and like for every I think it's just like, this is what you can be. You don't have to play all of these celebrity and media games. You can just be an artist. You can make an impact. You can have meaning, and then you can live your life how you want. You don't have to do like XYZ. And then she comes back in Prada. Thank you.
Yes.
And
very elegant, very beautiful.
Oh my God.
Incredible.
Just blows everybody out of the water. I think like between her performance and then Joni Mitchell's, it was just like, this is what art can be, right? Like you don't have, like, I love pop, but you can also just be authentic to yourself and to your own creative vision and be genuine. And my God, her voice though, like let's just be silent.
I think that's the part that I think a lot of people were sort of reacting to, is like how incredible and how profoundly strong her voice was. Listen, I literally have 45 seconds to each of you. So Jackson, you're the youngest one among us here. What was your reaction to this whole story? 30 seconds, sir.
I'll just say, like, I think it's kind of cemented it as an American standard of music. Like, this is one of the best things that America has made. And there's a little bit to be said about Black artists being covered by white artists and getting more popular. Something we saw with I Shot the Sheriff, Bob Marley, and Eric Clapton, Hound Dog, Elvis, Big Mama Thornton. But I mean, they were chilling on stage. They totally cemented their, relationship. And I just think, I don't want to get too negative. This is just a really cool moment.
Yeah.
I'm really happy to see it.
I love that. I love that as an explanation. And Garvey, 30 seconds to you. There's this debate about what kind of song Fast Car is. Younger people are like, it's hopeful. And older fans are like, this is a song about having your dreams crushed. What do you make of this sort of interpretation, these interpretations of Fast Car?
It is a tale as old as time. Born in the USA, people were singing that and had no idea what that was about. You know, the death of the American dream is the same thing that Fast Car is about. Yeah. It's okay to misinterpret a song just as long as you feel something. That's the way I feel about it. Like, if it gives you hope,
Yeah.
Feel it. If it gives you, if it makes you feel like you want to just sing along and think about your lover,
Yeah.
feel that. Just as long as it makes you feel. Who cares what it's about?
That's a beautiful place to leave it. Thank you all for making me feel something. Jackson Weaver, Auntie Donahue, and Carvia Bailey, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you.
You're so
Thank you.
welcome.
You can't get rid of me if you tried.
I never would dream to. Folks, my name is Elamin Abdelmahmoud. This show is called Commotion. That is it for the podcast today. Hey, we are going to be back next week. I would love to see you then. We'll talk about Usher's halftime show. It'll be a fun time.